Senses help me go around the world. Look inside me and listen, there are songs of birds.
Do you recall the five senses that we learned about in grade school? You know, the seeing or sight, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Have you ever pondered, is any one of these more important than the other? Let's take a closer look at those individually, shall we? Welcome to another episode of A Few Minutes with Marvin. I inspire those who aspire to make positive changes in their lives. And yeah, let's touch on the five senses. And is there one that's more important? Or are any of them important? No conspiracy theories here, just a different perspective on whether we're really in control of our five senses. So let's go ahead and take each individual, right? And then at the conclusion of this video, I'm going to wrap it all into a nice little package and give you a new perspective on the five senses plus. So, okay, let's start, let's go in order. Let's start with sight, right? Most of us, there are some beautiful souls that are here that don't have the visual sight, that cannot see, or are colorblind, or are blind, or glaucoma, or what would have you, right? Where that sight, that sense has been hindered, whether all their life or later in life or throughout their life through diabetes or however it's occurred for you, or if you are impaired visually. So all our lives, right, we're seeing things, right? And those of us that don't have sight, you develop your special intuitive vision, right? So that this can apply to you too. But let's just focus on sight. So we see many things with our eyes, right? The grass, the trees, our hands, these bodies, other beings, cars. Everything comes in through this lens, right? In a sense we call sight. However, have you ever pondered, and this video is about critical thought. I want to be upfront about that. This video is all going to boil down to critical thought. So if that's not your interest, if you don't have an interest or it doesn't resonate with you, then thank you for coming this far. I'm not trying to clickbait anybody. That this video is going to tie into why we should critical think and which one of our senses will help us become more critical thinkers, whatever that means for you. So if this isn't your topic of choice, God bless you. Feel free to click away. That's cool. So I really want people that are authentically aligned with this message to tune in, right? If it inspires you or if it resonates with you. Otherwise, don't feel that you have to. Anyway, let's get back on topic here. So, have you ever pondered or just questioned what you were seeing? And I don't mean my hand. I can see my hand, but things that are being put in our line of sight. And I'm talking from programs on television, and I'm talking about the billboards that we see, or even things that we're told. Well, whether you see it or not, that's it. That's what it is, right? A lot of us on our spiritual path say, I see colors, right? And other people say, well, I don't see anything. Some see shadows and shapes and angels and spirit, right? Not all of us can. So, that being said, why would we follow somebody else's direction on what we see, right? If there's a bunch of us at a museum and we're all looking at the same painting, regardless of who it's from, each of us will see something different in that painting, whether it was intentional or not by the artist, right? Does that make them wrong if they see something that you don't see, right? So how important is that sense? But if you're told, oh, look at this painting and you're going to see this and you're going to see that and you're going to see this and you're going to see that, just like the tour guides, right? Well, on your left, you're going to see this, and on your right, you're going to see that. Somebody's manipulating your visual sense. Now, some of you is like, well, I don't see it. And they're like, well, it's there. It's not there for me, so I don't really see it. You understand where this is going? It's about everything's not cut and dry. Everything is not black and white. From my perspective, I can see something and it means something to me. You can see the same thing and it means nothing to you. That's sight. Not about hindsight, foresight. What is it for me that object represents? Not what you see. You know, somebody else can see something different and it represents something different for them. Fantastic. That's the correlation here, where people can look at things with their own sight. And I'm not just talking about visual sight, I'm talking about mental sight, third eye sight, and translate it differently. Doesn't mean they're wrong, and it doesn't mean that you're right because you see it a different way. You're both right. Right? You're right to you, and they're right to them, and we can coexist. But there are other people out there that say, no, you have to see this way. Critical thought will say, no, I don't. This is how I see it. That's how you see it. Cool. We don't have to see things the same way. And it's awesome. It's great. I honor you that you have your own opinion and your own sight. And this is more evident in children, right? Children see things that most of us don't see ever, right? But it's real to them, and they can see it, whether it's their third eye or it's visually. Don't take those visions away from your children, right? They're not weird. They're not just seeing things. Sometimes they are seeing things. Allow them to have those experiences, because that's the experience that they're meant to have, and you're not. So critical thought says to allow everybody to have their opinions, right? And question what you've been told about what to see, right? If you don't see that, you don't have to. And nobody can force you to or tell you have to. So there's the sense of sight. Pretty important, isn't it? So let's go to the next one. Let's take our sounds, right? Our listening. What are we listening to? What are we tuning into? Audioly, right? And it can be clairaudient. You know, some of us, I'm one of them, have the gift of hearing things, being able to hear things that aren't there. Whispers, noises, voices, right? But I also use my ears to listen to the sounds around me. Now, what am I tuning into? You see a pattern here? What are you tuning in with visually, and what are you tuning in with audioly? What are you tuning into? Excuse me. Audioly. You know, are you listening to these sounds of nature, or are you tuning into that sound of that airplane? Nature, airplane. Which one's noise pollution? Which one's a distraction? critical thought, right? And does anybody else hear what I hear? No, probably not. Most of us do. There's a large bang, right? All of a sudden, there's a large bang. Everybody in the room has a different opinion of what it is, right? Well, to me, it sounded like a firecracker. Well, I heard guns. Well, I heard thunder, right? Well, I heard a crash. Until you go out and look at it visually, you don't really know what it is, but you process it differently, right? We all heard it, the same noise. We all heard it differently, and none of us is wrong, right? So why go and say, well, you're wrong because it's this? That's not critical thought. I was told that there's a right and a wrong, and if you don't hear what I hear, then you're wrong. Is this picture becoming a little clearer to you about where this, video is going? It really is about respecting others and their perspectives through the senses. Just because somebody doesn't hear something that you hear doesn't mean that you're hearing things or they're just not tuned in. It's their own unique perspective, what they're tuned into and how their senses resonate with them. Same thing. Can noises be manipulated? Yes. I have a whole video on noise pollution here and how to block that out, right? Does that airplane have to be so loud? Do the sirens on ambulances and police cars and fire trucks have to be that loud? Do church bells have to ring so loud? Do all the equipment, if you work in a restaurant business or anything, your refrigerator, that humming, right? You can hear it. Does it represent something more than just a noise from that machine, from that motor? Was it manipulated? What about the sounds coming from your television and your radio? And there are sounds coming from 5G towers. We're just not tuned into those frequencies, but they're there. How are those manipulating how we process what we're hearing? And what can we do about it? There's lots you can do about it. You can tune out the noise, the other noise. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience here. I work in a cafe now. There's 4 or 5 refrigerators, and each one of them cycle at different times, and then you have to have music on for an ambiance, and then the register, and then there's a paint department right, it's connected to a hardware store. The paint department's right there, and you hear that. I have to tune it out, right? And vibrationally too. All that is noise pollution that just keeps you blocked. But if you start tuning in, like I'll put 528 hertz, 432 hertz music. Now I don't blast it, but I tune my ear to that, my audio to that. And I really do block everything else out. Doesn't mean that it's not there. Doesn't mean that other people aren't hearing all of that. There's nothing I can do about those noises anyway for anybody else, but I can certainly block them out. So can you, if you choose to. And that's being a critical thinker. Or I can choose not to work there. We don't have choices like in big cities. You can choose not to live in a big city with all the noise pollution. But those are choices that you have to critically think about. That's where I'm going with this, right? Is it a distraction? Is it a noise that you need to be tuned into? What are you hearing that somebody else is hearing, and does it matter, right? That's your sense. We all have 5 senses or more, but we all tune into them differently. So, moving on, right? What are you smelling? Right? Sulfur smells really bad to some people. Some people get used to it who work in that industry, waste management, things like that. And to them, it just smells like something else, right? They get used to it. They tune into that smell. Smelling, has become a big marketing tool. I've been in the restaurant industry where there were times where in an Italian restaurant, we would burn rosemary and just go through the kitchen and let that smell waffle, right? Because it was a beautiful smell, and that your mind tunes into that. People who are hungry go, I have to get something with rosemary, or I have to get an Italian dish, or oh my God, that smells amazing, or garlic, right? Or even the coffee shops, brewing the coffee. It's a very distinct smell. Everybody goes, right? You associate coffee, or some people are like, oof, coffee, I don't like it. Or bacon, or anything, right? Pick a smell. Have our senses been programmed, right? Because, okay, this is bacon, you know it's bacon. That's coffee, you know it's coffee. But now we associate it with, that smells heavenly, right? Now your brain's saying, I want coffee. Versus like, that's a very pleasant smell, I recognize it as coffee, and moving on, right? Did you really want coffee? Or was that aroma leading you to it? Critical thinking. If you've been trying to give up caffeine, right, or coffee in general, all of a sudden that smell heightens, right? Because your ego doesn't want to give up coffee, you do. But it's going to intensify that smell so that you are tempted to go have that cup of coffee or whatever it is. That donut, that cupcake, whatever, bread. Critical thought. You have to start critically thinking. Are my senses being manipulated in ways that are counterintuitive? Food for thought. That brings us to the fourth one, taste. And this is a big one, and I was guilty of it myself, and I may still be to a certain degree, but for me, and they teach you this, in the kitchen industry, that everything's a texture. Your palate has different, sensations that this one's bitter, this one's this one, this one's this one. So you try to put foods together that wake up different taste buds, right? So that you have a pleasurable experience. Because why? We want you to come back and ask for that same dish. Is that manipulation? Yes, I partook in it. Also, I've also learned that most people will get the same exact thing every day. It's the same exact thing, especially in New York. At ask any deli or bagel shop. People come in, ask for the exact same bagel with the exact same cream cheese or spread or whatever else they get on it. It's always the same, right? Because that they crave that. And if you say, hey, I've got a strawberry jelly that will pair this, like, ugh, right? They don't even taste it, but their senses of their taste buds have been manipulated, right? So all they focus on is that, instead of going, I want a new experience. But this goes deeper with the taste buds as well, and why this is so critical that you think before you eat. If you remember the movie The Matrix, right? Cypher, I think his name was, the one guy that was outside the Matrix that chose to go back in there and sold his friends to the agents. He went back there, right, and he's got that steak. He says, I know this isn't real, but he's savoring it, the smell and the taste, right? He's using all his senses because that's what he remembers from the Matrix. Because outside the Matrix, Tank was making his slop, they called it, or something, right? It looked like oatmeal, drippy oatmeal. But what did he say? Those people that were complaining about it, he said, but it's all the foods that your body needs, right? Your body is a vehicle. It's a vessel. It needs proper fuel, right? Proper fuel doesn't always taste good, but what is taste? Our taste buds were manipulated so that we know that this taste is this, and that tastes good, and that doesn't, right? Whenever I tell people I just eat fruits and vegetables and nuts and grains and seeds and stuff, they're like, ugh. Or that I don't use salt or pepper, a lot of salt, a lot of pepper. I use different condiments like thyme and turmeric, herbs, cilantro, ginger. And they're like, oh, that tastes nasty. I was like, well, have you tasted it, first off? And they're like, well, no. It's like, well, how do you know? Because they have a preconceived, somebody told them this doesn't taste good. Or somebody convinced them that these flavors don't go together, just like chefs, right? If I were to cook for chefs now, they'll be like, that doesn't go with that, that doesn't go with that. It's like, who cares? From my perspective, it's who cares? I don't worry about what the food tastes like anymore. I know that I'm going to get selenium from it, magnesium, potassium, calcium, protein, whatever I need, whatever this vessel needs, is what I'm going to feed it. And guess what? I can manipulate the spices and make everything taste good. It's palatable to me. It doesn't have to be. I don't have to manipulate food to taste good, because the prime objective for me is to put the nutrients that this body needs so it can last longer. So I can manipulate my own taste buds. I don't need food to taste spectacular. Now, do I allow myself to go back and have a bagel every now and again with peanut butter? Yeah. Does it taste good? Of course. But my mind was programmed. My taste buds were programmed. It's like, this is fantastic. But do I have to go back again and taste it again and have the same thing over again? No, I really don't. So now, even though, for me, it's very obvious that we've been programmed, right? By whomever, it doesn't matter who it is, and for what reason, right? But you know what McDonald's food tastes like. You know what Chick-fil-A food tastes like. You know what this tastes like. You know what hot dogs taste like, right? You have those memories, right? And yes, most of it's natural, but how much of it was, ingrained? How much of it was marketing? Critical thought will tell you that. So from my perspective, I would encourage you to start thinking about food not so much as what it tastes like. What is it doing for my body? And should I put that processed food in my body? That's up to you to discern. I don't do it anymore, but I can make my food taste good, regardless of what other people think. And great, think what you wish. You don't have to eat what I eat, but for me, it's the right thing to do. So make the choice that you make, but don't criticize others for their choices. Right? That's not critical thought. They're going to eat what and how they want. Nothing you can do will change that, and you shouldn't try to change them. And let's get to the fifth one. That's touch, right? Now, this one's very unique because everybody thinks everybody feels everything the same, and we don't. There's so many meridians in our fingers and our toes that we can feel things differently. I'm touching a wooden table right now, and this one feels soft and there's some knots in it, but somebody else may touch it and go, oh my god, I got a splinter. I didn't get a splinter. Or say, no, this is soft wood. Well, it feels pretty hard to me, but that's my sense, right? My touch. But our touch is way more than we've been allowed to, right? You can touch things vibrationally when you allow those, right? When you calm your senses and to stop thinking that this feels like ice and this feels hot. Not that it doesn't, but you can reprogram yourself to say, it's hot, yes. My intuition will tell me if I should be touching it. Not leave it there until it burns my hand off or till my fingers freeze to it. We know what's hot and what's cold, right? And we know what's soft and what's hard and what's silky and what's cotton and what's linen, and we've been told all that. This is this, so it feels like this. But does it to you? Or were you manipulated to think it does? Critical thought, again. That's where we're going with this video, as you've already seen. So which one of these 5 is the most important, do you think? Leave me a comment. I'd really love to know. Is it your sight? Is it your hearing? Is it your smell? Is it your taste? Is it your touch? Which one of these do you think brings more value to this body, right? Forget about everything else around you. Because at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for us, right? We have to see things the way we see them. We have to hear things the way we hear them. We have to smell things the way we smell them. Taste things the way we taste them. And feel things the way we feel them. So, in the end, they're all important to us individually. There's no need to pick one over the other. However, from my perspective, there is one sense that stands way above the others. And that's the 6th sense. Intuition. Right? They made that movie, The Sixth Sense, about it. The kid could hear and see ghosts, right? For me, that's not the 6th sense. 6th sense comes from not just your chakra system, but those systems really all together align and coalesce to give you your sixth sense, your intuition. And for me, that's the most important sense, because that's the critical thought sense. That is the common sense. That is what brings every other of your senses in alignment with you specifically, and they bring all the senses in alignment for somebody else specifically. And guess what? They don't have to look like each other's. They don't have to smell like each other, taste like each other, feel like each other, hear like each other, or see like each other. Isn't that cool? It's all about critically thinking, but it's all about your critical thoughts. What looks right for you, what sounds right for you, what smells good to you, what tastes good to you, and what feels good to you. It's all individual, it's all unique. We're not all the same. So once you start critically thinking about, am I feeling, seeing, touching, hearing, smelling, or intuitively feeling these things? Are these mine, or was it learned? Did somebody tell me that that's what, this is the color black, so that's black? Or this is what bacon smells like, so that's bacon. If it doesn't smell like anything to you, then it doesn't have to smell like anything to you. If it looks like brown to you, then it's brown. Right? That's how you take control back of your whole mind, body, soul, because that's all our senses in this vehicle. And we have to start taking care of these senses by tuning in to good things, hearing good things, smelling good things, eating good things, and touching and sensing good things, and following our intuition. Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't feel right to you, you have to question whether you should do it at all, regardless of who else is doing it. It feels right to them. Cool. Doesn't to you, don't do it. Point of this video, I hope that this makes a lot of sense to you. We have our five senses. From my perspective, they've been manipulated. It's time to take back our senses and see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, and intuitively feel what makes sense to us, what resonates for us, regardless of what anybody else sees, smells, hears, tastes, touch, and intuitively feels. Isn't that just amazing? I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspires you to take back your senses and to start critically thinking more. If you like the contents of this video, please give it a like, share it, leave a comment. I'd really love to know what you thought about this. And subscribe to my channel. I'd be truly grateful and honored to serve you through all of my six senses, especially my intuition. Wishing you many blessings on your journey. Have an amazing day.